Hi pension subscribers and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about how safe is your final salary defined benefit scheme after former Chancellor Kwasi mini budget. So I'm going to be sharing an article today on my screen. This is from This Is Money in the UK, which is obviously 100% independent of us and obviously a pretty large institution or website in the UK that covers a lot of topics. So their title is How Safe is a Defined Benefit Scheme After Former Chancellor Pension Meltdown? Financial watchdogs were unprepared for the sell-off of government bonds. Defined benefit pensions are now too expensive for companies to offer, with providers turning to LDI strategies to fund investment schemes. Now, most of you will never have heard of LDI probably until the past 3 months or 2 months in terms of final salary schemes. It is really important though, and you need to understand exactly what it is. They're often described as gold-plated or guaranteed. They are certainly generous. These days, they are rare as hen's teeth, but the recent crisis that hit the pension industry following Kwasi Kwarteng's disastrous mini-budget in late September has raised concerns about how safe defined benefit pension schemes really are. The meltdown, which prompted the Bank of England to prop up the markets, revealed an astonishing and previously unknown level of leverage borrowing hidden in the pension scheme system. Financial watchdogs admit they were unprepared for the sudden sell-off in gilts, government IOUs, which caused company pension funds to sell assets at fire sale prices as investors took fright at the underfunded tax cuts put forward by the former Chancellor. So we're going to dive into now exactly what kind of LDI is, why it's being used inside your final salary schemes, and potentially what the possible disadvantages of that are. Regulators now admit they did not know the scale of leverage that had built up as the result of liability-driven investment strategies used by pension funds, designed to keep their funding levels healthy so they can meet future payout promised. Now, everybody understands what the word leverage is, okay? In a basic sense, if you have leverage over someone, you're angling something on them. Leverage in finance is exactly the same thing, and it's actually what happened in 2008 and 2009 when we had the financial crisis. Some of the best banks in the world, or some of the most reputable banks in the world, Barclays alike, were all leveraged to an amount of 30 to 35 times the assets that were on their balance sheet. So effectively, say someone came in and deposited £30,000 in a Barclays deposit account, they would then effectively leverage that money up to 30 to 35 times. That's fantastic when times are going good, they make lots of money, everyone's happy. As soon as people start trying to take their money out of the bank, obviously it causes a bit of a problem. Not that banks run in exactly the same way as a final salary scheme, but that's probably one context of leverage that people would have heard in financial services over the course of the past 10-15 years. So, a quick recap on how we got here. Until 10 years ago, defined benefit pensions were commonplace. Payouts were based on how many years an employee had worked and usually their final salary at retirement. Once retirement income is taken, it's typically linked to inflation until you die. Crucially, the investment risk of such schemes is borne by the employer. This is why they're referred to as gold-plated. That means employees have a financial and legal duty to pay a pension promised as and when it falls due. As more of us live longer, this becomes increasingly expensive for most companies to meet. As a result, many have closed these schemes, but both to new workers and to further contributions from existing members. New joiners are offered cheaper and less generous money purchase or defined contribution plans. Here, the employee takes all the investment risk, with the employee contributing to the plan on the worker's behalf. But existing promises by companies to pay out in defined benefit pension schemes still have to be met on time and in full. So, for a fee, investment consultants devised LDI strategies for defined benefit pension funds to cap the cost at an estimated 1.4 trillion of future pension payouts. By using leverage to boost the returns from gilts and other assets such as shares, the companies behind the pension schemes could limit the amount of money they had to put in the plans to plug any funding gaps. The cost-saving approach proved hugely popular, especially when interest rates were stable and ultra-low. Some 60% of the 5,200 defined benefit company pension schemes use LDIs. That's 60%, okay? But LDIs came unstuck after the mini-budget, sparked by an unprecedented sell-off in gilts as investor confidence in Liz Truss administration ebbed away and the cost of government borrowing soared. The sell-off forced many pension funds to sell gilts in order to raise funds quickly to meet cash demands and banks they had borrowed from. So basically what this means is, during times of stability, when everything is fine, LDI is in the background. No one really realizes it, no problem at all. When you have a bit of a shake-up in the market, when you have a little bit of volatility in the market, it's these highly complex financial tools and solutions, a bit like the derivatives we had in 2008-2009 crisis, that everyone thought was so smart and everyone thought they were the smartest people in the world and they'd created this magic way of everything being safe. that's when things start to become risky in terms of finance. And when you have a product such as LDI, which probably 90% of retail clients don't understand what it is and how it works, that's where it becomes dangerous. Because this is your pension scheme. This is in your terms and conditions. If you ask this information from your schemes, they'd have to provide it to you, but you don't actually understand what it is. And that's where you have a little bit of opaqueness coming in, or not necessarily opaqueness, because they have to give you the information, but a lack of understanding of what actually is happening inside your DB scheme. So I'm going to skip to the end here and give a little bit of a final thought. So perhaps the real damage caused by the LDA saga is more reputational than financial. After a series of pension scandals like Robert Maxwell, the Mirror Pension Fund, to Equitable Life, and more recently BHS and British Steel, consumer trust in pensions, which is already fragile, has now been dealt another blow. But that shouldn't lead to rash decision making, so be warned. So effectively, it still doesn't mean that you should rush the door and every single DB scheme needs to be transferred out. You do have the Pension Protection Fund if your scheme were to get into difficulties, but generally speaking, the Pension Protection Fund doesn't give you anywhere near the same indexation or the same benefits that your defined benefit scheme would. So this is certainly not everyone needs to rush the door and do a DB pension transfer, but you do need to be aware of what LDI is and how your pension scheme is being managed at your final salary scheme. If you have any questions about this, you'd like to understand about your specific scheme, get in touch below to talk with myself or one of our senior financial advisors to do an in-depth review of your individual scheme. Thank you very much, and as always, take care of your UK pension assets.